care of everyone who can't, but if you have the energy to share your skills and you can help other people, that's perfect. But don't let it spoiled by the fact that you enjoy being at home. And it is just a safe space we are creating, and some are good at it, some are not. And if we have energy left, we should definitely encourage other people to create that safe space at home for them with all these skills.
I really like that analogy of somebody being, quite athletic or, proficient at another part of their life. And I often think that we're world champions in Ireland at feeling guilty and feeling bad, but maybe there's others out there as well that, it's something that we can overcome and challenge, and certainly skill for me, and managing that empathic distress and really practicing empathic concern to the fullest degree. And if you're not familiar with empathic concern, hopefully we'll get a chance to go into that next week as well, and building on the emotional awareness that we're doing. But thank you very much, Alex. Yeah, sorry, Anya, go ahead.
No, probably it's just leading too far, and we should listen to one and Mary Catherine. I was just wondering, this is interesting that in Ireland people tend to have to feel guilty. I mean, in Germany, for obvious reasons, because of a history. I think the younger generations have ingrained this feeling of guilt, and people are dealing differently with it, possibly. But in Ireland, I was wondering, perhaps it's also the dominance of Catholic Church, because I'm Catholic myself.
Yeah.
And I'm religious. I would call myself ecumenic, because we are Protestants and Catholics mixed in my family, and I'm very much differentiating between God and the Church as a human institution. Anyway, you're recording, I'm not sure, but anyway, so I really think that the Catholic Church is very strong at making us feel guilty. I was wondering if it's part of it, but it doesn't belong to this course.
Oh, it's a fascinating conversation, because it does. We're dealing with that currently, and seeing everybody, or seeing so many people suffer around us. But I'm not an expert, and I'm not ecumenical. But I would certainly see other Catholic influences in maybe inheriting generational guilt as well. But it's something on top of maybe this time for reflection and equanimity. We're exploring other things like guilt and like other emotions that we have, that we can have time now and opportunities to maybe explore and challenge, and why not, if we're feeling afflicted in any way, like we thought, if they're distorting in some way the true emotions that we have, why not take the time to explore them. But I am very interested to know how other people have been practicing, and whether there's elements of maybe we can call it guilt, maybe there's another word to it as well. But how have you been managing your own situations and feeling okay, or the okay zone or the resilience zone? Have you been managing to stay within that zone, or have you been up and down, and how might you have got back into the zone? Juan has unmuted yourself. No. Oh, Mary Catherine. Sorry, Mary Catherine, you're muted. There you go.
I was just going to say, Juan, you go ahead first. It's fine with me. I'll come after you. Okay. I've had a few more ups and downs this week than I have before. But I mean, all in all, I feel pretty good. But it was the first time this week that I actually tried to order something online, and their website was so overwhelmed, and then they couldn't take my credit card because I had to update the expiry date since I had a new card, which sounds really mundane, but they wouldn't do it. They couldn't do it. Their website was locked or something. So I couldn't get what I needed. Then I tried something else, and they said, you don't fit the criteria. You might fit the age, but you're not medically vulnerable, so we can't deliver groceries. So it was a real interesting thing. And then I tried to call the bank, and I tried to call the place that had the website problem, and their lines were all busy. So it was a very in-your-face recognition of what people in far worse conditions than I am have got to go through. So, so I was frustrated, but I, and this is related to the prior conversation about guilt. I mean, I grew up Catholic. That's fine. I know about Catholic guilt, but I don't feel guilty right now. What I feel is grateful. I feel it's like I realize what's happening other places. And then I think, wow, geez, if that's going on there and I've got all this stuff going for me. So in a sense, it's more of a, I'm grateful that's where I am right now. But I've also had more years to have to work through guilt. So it's a little bit easier to shove the guilt off to the side and just say, you know, if I really did something wrong, then it's worth feeling guilty. But if I haven't done anything wrong and I'm doing the best I can, then there must be something in here that is a gift for me. And I'm grateful that I don't have to be part of that other. I mean, I remember in the 60s, when some of you weren't even born, and I was involved in all kinds of civil rights stuff. And I went to a point where I would think, I was doing with all this community organizing and all this kind of stuff. And I think I can't even go for a walk in the forest because the poor they don't get a break. And it's like, well, you know, if you don't take care of yourself, how are you going to take care of the poor? So, you know, those are lessons you just have to periodically figure out. It's like, well, put your oxygen mask on before you help anybody else. So you've talked about that in the program, but it's, but anyway, all in all, I also have had on a different level, not so partly the self-compassion, but partly some of the other skills, dealing with cousins and a nephew on issues, political issues, and trying to use my skills in order to ask questions, in order to discern, in order to move through values and whatever. So it's been full of that kind of stuff too. And I feel pretty good about it. Nothing's perfect. Progress, not perfection, but you know, all right. So anyway, I'm okay. Thank you.
A beautiful summary. To get to okay, that's a beautiful summary. And it shows us the processes. You mentioned years of experience and years of practice, which can help, but I suppose it's process. And the analogies that you're painting, for me at least, Mary Catherine, the butterfly and the caterpillar we use in skill 4 in self-compassion, that transformation from guilt to gratefulness and gratitude, it's a strong transformation. And I can see almost like the butterfly creature releasing. And then, like you say, being there for your nephew and for your cousins and being able to ask questions. That's it's a powerful journey, I'm sure, and it's one that we can all aspire to. So we can't necessarily expect ourselves on everyday basis to be, you know, we can be triggered by the internet, we can be triggered by so many different things, but knowing that there has been a journey from this process, and you used the term guilt as well. I think we've introduced that this morning, but yeah, it's an inspiration to know that you've taken that journey and it's been successful for you for the most part to get to where you finished by saying, I'm okay. Many people may not be okay from that, all the same journey.
You know, there was one other, there was something else you said and then it just flew away. So I'll just wait. I'll bring it up later. But it was related to what you said. It was partly the butterfly, but that's okay. I'd like to hear from one now.
And today we will come back, because I would love, people have mentioned resourcing and we'd love to hear some of the resources as well, if possible, any resources that people are feeling comfortable to share, because they're beneficial for all of us, as we know. So Juan, you've been waiting patiently.
No, actually, I feel that I'm profiting from both Alejandra's and Mary Catherine's comments, because indeed those elements really existed for me. And I would say on my side that rather than calling it a guilt, I would say helplessness in a way, because I felt really, I realized, and also resonating what Mary Catherine said, I realized how fortunate I am to be able to have things to eat and stay safe and continue to have my job and my paychecks coming in while all these crises are going on outside. So indeed, on a larger scale, I felt quite helpless, especially when I hear these news of people in great distress at the moment. So and also personally, I had a colleague who seemed very, very down in the past couple of weeks, and she usually isn't, you know, that kind of person, and the things that I ask her to do seem to come a bit later than usual. So I was wondering what was going on, and then I took a chance to write to her to ask her how you are, you know, because we do have these virtual coffee sessions where we exchange things, but it's mainly just, you know, with a larger group. So I wrote that, and she wrote me back that she's very worried about her grandparents and etc. So that moment, initially, I felt a bit helpless, that there's not much I can say about the whole thing because we're in it together, and somehow we're all tied, our hands are all tied. But at the same time, I really learned a lot from this course, and I try to reflect a lot from her perspective what kind of things I could say and share with her. So including the links to this course, I shared a number of things, including what helped me. For example, I read poetry, and that helped me a lot, etc., etc. So I think, and then we tried to organize a fun soiree with costumes from our houses. So, you know, to bring a little bit more lively atmosphere in the team. And that helped me in return, actually, because while I was trying to help with her and connect with her, it actually helped me to also stay quite happy. So in a way, I've moved on from this helplessness to being grateful and happy. So it's been a very nice week for me, I think, a learning week. Thank you.
It's really beautiful you're sharing, and you started by saying that you're profiting from other people. I feel like I've just profited from your sharing very much so, Juan, and you've almost talked through, for me, I'm connecting things to some of the skills that we talk about, and that sense of agency that we're moving towards and it doesn't have to be a huge sense of agency, but that can help us deal with helplessness, or help us deal with empathic concern, which can be similar type of thing, where we want to be empathetic, we want to have empathy for people, but we can be overwhelmed if it's so great, if the helplessness feeling can be so great. So doing small things that can have profound effects can alleviate in some ways that sense. And even just sending that email that you sent, it seems like it was a sense of agency from the way I'm seeing it, at least. And then suggestions that you came up with, lovely, the soiree, the dressing up. I think a lot of people
it was fun. It was fun.
Today, actually, there's a national day of a soiree, dressing up in Ireland. People are saying, we've been dressing down for so long, let's dress up and donate, and whatever people can to a specific or any local cause that people can donate to. But the dressing up thing is something as well, empowering and something a little different.
Yeah,
but it's really nice to hear your reflections and insights, and I'd happily welcome you to take the full course as well, because it from your sharing each week, it sounds like you're already doing quite a lot of the components of CIT, and maybe just to label some of them and to know and to build on them would be really great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
This is also something which we can all profit from, having sort of more time. It's very hard to schedule, as everybody is actually just mentioning. Time flows, and we have to have a really a much stricter time management, not to feel that just the day is gone without having had the breaks you wanted to have or whatever. But actually, I caution myself. I didn't manage right now to profit from all sorts of opportunities which are there now online, much more reachable than they wouldn't be if we had to travel there. And I jumped in, sorry, Shane, but I really enjoyed and profited from listening to all of you this morning. And I wanted to add to the picture of the caterpillar and the butterfly and what you said, Mary Catherine, because I think nothing stays. We are not staying the butterfly. So we are even during the day, we can be the caterpillar again, which makes the whole metaphor a bit questionable, but in a biological sense, but it is still very powerful. And I can really tell that gratitude really carried me through the crisis so far. It really gave me the equanimity, and exactly with, I could use the same wording as you did, by looking at what we have, like just, it's spring, we can go outside, we have drinkable water, we have shelter, we have loving people around. I mean, all these things really, and I had, funnily, I had an email exchange with someone. She's an editor, and I had to write a little article, and I had to ask her if I get permission to send it to someone. And we had this little exchange. I don't know, I never met her, and she doesn't know me. And I told her how grateful I am that so far my parents are still healthy and didn't catch the virus, and my family, etc. And we exchanged, and she finished with, "Please do write me again." This really helped me so much. And it's so nice to hear from people that, because we can all be grateful in certain ways, it's just a matter of perspective, and it's so helpful to talk and exchange in order to get this change of perspective. I really think.
Yeah, I agree 100%, Anya, and I think that gratitude is really, it's been profound for me and on a personal level this week. And also the other thing you mentioned of that, the thinking trap of impermanence, knowing that, you know, gratitude can be a pro-social value that we can practice, and it can assist us to, you know, challenge some of the other things that are going on in our life, and allow us to remain as close to the resilient as possible, but also knowing that this will pass, and that it, even not necessarily the whole situation, but a feeling. You wake up in the morning and you're not feeling the same oomph or the same energy, knowing that that can pass, and knowing that you can actually implement and do things like contemplative practice, or like a conversation with a friend, or like just, you know, pausing and allowing things to settle. The analogy of the vase or the vase, where the water is just settling down. If it's stirred around, and there's sand and there's stones and there's mud, knowing that your mind can actually, if you take the time and allow it to have that time, and that's appreciation as well. That's gratitude and self-compassion for yourself, I would see it. And normally in a normal, whatever normal is, the past 48 hours for me have been fairly tumultuous. There's an image that we have at the bottom of, actually, let's just, this image here, I think, if I can get myself to share. I just try and share for a second, but this image here that we sometimes share in the CIT, that reminds me of probably the last 48 hours. On a if I was just to categorize some of the things going on for me, seeing as we're all sharing, I think it's nice also to share some other things, but allowing myself that space to be able to maybe be like this for a couple of moments, or a couple of minutes, or so on a weekly basis. If I had checked in last week and checked out, there's, you know, I've separated from my family, not separated. They've had to separate from me temporarily, for, you know, with discernment and with caution and heedfulness and awareness. We made a decision that my daughter and my wife are not in the same place as I am right now. My grandfather has contracted the virus back in Ireland, and it's, you know, it's very challenging because he's on his own. He's in a home. You know, he has been for 9 or 10 weeks, and so I'm aware of the concern from all of my family, particularly my mother, who's also on her own right now. So I mean, the mental proliferation that we talk about, or the spark to the fire's fire, there's lots of sparks going on. And then adding to that, I spent a fascinating, I wouldn't recommend it to anybody unnecessarily, and nobody does, but I spent about 18 hours in an emergency room, the busiest emergency room we have in Madrid, in Spain, La Paz, appropriately known the Peace, the hospital known as Peace, but it was anything but peaceful inside, in terms of what activity that was going on in a typical emergency room, multiplied by a lot in terms of the energy and the franticness and hecticness, and people who are really suffering, and as a result of the virus, but as a result of just a very challenged medical health system. And so this gratefulness, this appreciation of the common humanity that we have, but seeing compassion in action, for me, just to observe that was very, very soothing. And it allowed me to, yes, go into this area of mental proliferation and try to put out some sparks and forest fires as we're, you're watching things going on and unfolding. And I was sitting on a hospital bed feeling helpless and also a bit guilty and feeling all these other things that we talked about today, because I wasn't feeling anywhere close to the same level of unwellness as people around me. But for whatever reason, they wanted to observe my health and do some tests. And so I was there, and I didn't have a sense of agency. I was fairly helpless, but relying on the compassion and really the incredible humanity, compassion. I can use many other terms, but seeing it in action and then appreciating what I have, what I will have, and what I had in that moment as well. So, but to appreciate seeing compassion in action was a really powerful one for me. To be able to be aware enough to say, I need to be in my resilient zone as much as I can. Allow myself now and again, if I'm going to go out, but really try and practice some of the tools. And it was probably skill number 3 that was, and there were overlapping many other skills, of course, the resourcing and tracking and self-compassion. But yeah, that the spark to forest fire and being aware of afflictive mental states and beneficial mental states and how they actually work in real time. And it was really, I wouldn't like to do it as an experiment, because it's real people and my family are real and my emotions are real, and so too are people around me. But it was fascinating. And I woke up this morning smiling, but tomorrow might not be the same, and it might be a different process. And this is where I think it's nice to be able to share with people like yourselves, share with people around me, but to know, if I was to write these things down, just 3 things: that your family are going to be detached from you, you're going to spend some time in an emergency room observing what's happening in a very profound and strong way, and then feel the yearning to be able to be close to your grandfather who's going through a tough time back home. Ordinarily, one of them would be enough to throw me well out of resilience, and it probably did, but to know that you can come through a 48-hour period like that and have the space to be able to think, and this is where the discernment comes in as well, the compassion on one wing and discernment on another, to be able to make decisions. And sometimes, like, heedfulness came in yesterday as we practiced in skill 1, awareness, mindfulness, and heedfulness. Heedfulness was that I wanted to come home from the hospital and give my family a big hug and tell them I'm okay and that we'll all be okay. But that would have been negligent, I think, if I have contracted the virus. And I don't think I have. I hope I haven't at this point. But they needed to move. So there's all these elements. Now I'm not going along point by point saying, okay, skill number 1 is this, and I should go for skill. It happens, and then sometimes it's practice. And I certainly haven't managed to stay like a butterfly, as Anya said. There's definitely been caterpillars, caterpillars, and the knowledge that we can practice quite a lot and remain somehow resilient for the people around us and for ourselves. So this weekend is going to be very much self-compassion, I think, and compassion for others. But yeah, I also want you shared very honestly, and I wanted to share that as well with you. And we haven't got Anya. We haven't asked you. You've shared little bits, but if you would like to share anything this week as well, and I certainly don't mean to pass it back to you and say, how does it compare to mine? Not at all. You've been great for me.
No, absolutely not. And I think I sufficiently shared, and we might move on with the practice. But I wanted to thank you for sharing that honestly. And the word comparison or compare came into my mind before, and I would like to add on that, because I think it's sometimes so difficult that we compare. It can make us very grateful. I don't want to contradict myself. If we have someone in the class, I think we shared that, who's in Uganda, who says if we had clean water, we wouldn't wash our hands, we would drink it. And obviously, a comparison can ensure that we see what we've got and seize the moment. But Shane, you being in the emergency room and not taking sufficiently serious what you've got is just also destructive. And I know that that we always compare, and compared to that, I'm very well off, and you shouldn't complain, and don't take you too serious, etc. It's really a fine balance, and we have to take certain things serious, and we shouldn't compare too much. It's actually also the path for unhappiness. There are a lot of research studies, so it seems contradictory, but it's not. It's just a matter of where we compare, how we use the comparison to as a tool to reach enhanced well-being or not. And if we use a comparison not to take ourselves serious, and I really strongly work on getting this body literacy. And I had, for example, a skiing accident at the beginning of February, and I almost fainted. At that stage, I thought, perhaps there's something. 2 days later, I could stand on the knee, and I thought, oh, there's nothing. Now I know I need surgery, and I would have possibly taken my the signals my neuro system gave me. I should have taken it a bit more serious, and I just, now I'm sharing again, but I just wanted to say, I think it's important. You weren't in the emergency room for decoration, and feeling guilty because you took space there is absolutely not the way how to deal with it self-compassionately, I think. And
Sure.
so my
No, you're so right.
in German I could put it more complex, but
gratitude.
put it in simple like that.
If you can challenge your that guilt and self well, not pity, but guilt and helplessness. If that's challenged, and you can actually appreciate it by saying, I am grateful for what I have, but also I'm grateful, not the negative comparison, but I'm grateful that there's people here that can assist other people that are more afflicted than me, rather than saying it's not my fault that other people are sick. There's a virus going around, and there's so many other reasons why a health system might be challenged, for example. So that's not necessarily guilt, but that gratefulness and gratitude it's a powerful thing to challenge the helplessness and challenge the feeling of being guilty. And it actually works in a more beneficial way. It's a beneficial mental state where guilt is not. And we're looking at the two of them. You know, guilt can drive you sometimes to take on more beneficial mental states, and then one leads to the next and leads to the next. And we've gone through that last week, and we'll show you through the slides again. But to have that opportunity to put them into action and sit and observe, that observation is really powerful as well, because I've been in situations and then at the end reflected, but the observation while they're happening, it also can, for me, helped me to keep in a more calm and steady way. And it was I'm grateful for the experience. I don't want other people to have to go to medical rooms to appreciate what the health system and health staff are doing. But when we're clapping at 8 p.m. here every evening, it brought it to another level yesterday for me to visualize the assistance and the compassion in action.
Yeah, and I just had to think of the little video clip. Sorry, Mary Catherine, I was interrupting you. Shane shared a little video clip of a team of this, possibly the same hospital, saying thank you for something Shane's wife did. And I felt so touched by it, because they took the time and they were still laughing, and they had so much optimism, and I was so much in awe of this group of people. And this, I think it is definitely really good to also change the perspective and see what they.
Yeah, I didn't think
this
of that.
group, and obviously other system, other people in the system who are doing so much. Mary Catherine, sorry, I felt I jumped in.
No, that's okay. And I was muted, so I forgot that I was. Anyway, well, what you've just, both of you have been talking about relates to something that I remember I was going to say earlier and then forgot. And that is, it's that part about being the observer, that kind of metacognition thing that you were able to do. what had come up before in a different words, it's almost as if we keep stretching our souls to be able to be aware of parallel realities that are going on all at the same time. So it isn't, it's kind of mind-boggling, but it's like, this is really stretching us. And when you can actually, as you did, Shane, just, well, others have too in their own ways, but you were just more recently describing it, that while you're in the midst of it, you were also able to be an observer and then go back into just being, which is fine. But the fact that you could move back and forth, it is as if it's stretching us into different realities. This is my reality, and I need to own it and honor it. And this is somebody else's reality. Look at what's happening in these people. And then there are other people. So it really is I guess that's part of what compassion is all about anyway, but still, it's pretty amazing when you can move back and forth into these different parallel universes almost, and recognize they're all real at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. The parallelism came to me as well. Thank you very much.
Brilliantly observed, and it really is like it's. We're talking about practicing, training muscles of our mind, muscles of our body. I mean, and when needed in adverse situations, you test them out. And if you need to keep on training, at that point, the muscles weren't strong enough, or the body wasn't strong enough, the mind wasn't strong enough. But we don't often get a chance to really challenge our resilience. And now we're getting that opportunity multiple fold on a daily basis. It's practice. I'm quite excited when we do eventually release whatever comes after this. We're going to be well trained, like elite athletes of resilience by the time the next phase comes on. I hope that's my hope, and I think you observed, you put it really beautifully, and that metacognitive awareness that we're moving towards. It's not something that you do in skill 1 or skill 2, but you're moving towards that sense of being able to employ and use, to be aware of awareness. Okay. So before we go through now we're going to probably move on and do a practice. I think it's nice maybe to bring ourselves out of this particular mindset right now, and then come back into, and we can reflect as well. But it would be really nice, personally and selfishly, to hear maybe 1 or 2 of the resources that you have been using. If we have the time, it would be nice to hear. Some people have shared, but they change. And my resources last week are not the resources I'm using this week, and that's also nice. And it's we'll hopefully open that conversation before the end of the hour as well. My goodness, it is going this hour goes so quickly.
It's more like, sorry.
No, we wanted to get 2 practices in, but we may not get time for 2 practices now, but 1 nice practice might be.
Why don't we do it democratically, Shane? Because we're such a small group, and if you had the options, sharing a resource, or the focus attention practice we did, it's focusing on the breath, and the resting in mind in a natural state practice, which is observing the mind, relating to it as the blue sky or the deep blue ocean, and you had 2 options. What would you choose? Because we did all 3 of them, and we did some sort of resourcing, and it's always great, and it's the foundation of all those practices I just mentioned. But shall we have a vote, perhaps? Sorry, Shane.
No,
I'm taking your crown. We even have a poll here. You can vote.
We're very democratic on Zoom and CIT. Would anybody have a preference? Because even one person's preference might have a weight here as well. If everybody is okay to do either one, is there any particular preference that jumps out from the resting the mind in its natural state, focused attention practice, or we mentioned the sharing of resourcing?
I'm really okay with any of them, and I actually like the idea that with such a small group, that you're finding out what the energy is of the group. So that anyway, there you go. But I'm not helping much because I'm telling you.
We can just share our resources since we're
Okay.
a small group. I don't know.
Mhm. Yeah, for
I don't
me,
mind.
anything is
Oh.
fine.
Great. Okay, well, that's nice. Maybe we have a chance to go around to each person again and just maybe share a resource or two that you've been finding useful for you this week.
Yeah, I want to share. Well, I've been doing a lot of drawings. I'm not a perfect drawer. I don't know. You can see my.
Wow.
Can you see that?
You do
Yeah.
that?
This is amazing.
I'd like to see what a perfect drawer can do.
Right. Beautiful.
No, yeah, that's when I kind of meditate. I kind of I kind of see myself outside in the universe, in the where everything is quiet, and seeing the world from above. And at the end, I kind of send kind of like that. So I remember one of the practices we did to imagine like you have a blanket of light surrounding you, and then I can see myself sending the light to the whole world under me, and just kind of sense blessings to everybody and hoping that the whole world will heal. And I'm just stay there in the silence, in the darkness, and just kind of seeing this light and sending it below me.
Really beautiful.
Yes.
That's
And
what I've been using lately. So
When you said you were looking at the world from above, I really felt light. I mean, like in the sense of not heavy at all. And I once had a picture in my mind. It's interesting. I never went into the air. I always stayed.
yeah, I always see myself
Water
like
is
in a
mine.
bubble, like in a bubble. And
Mm.
I remember that was especially that special practice. I remember I see myself in the bubble, and I can see the bubble bursting, and I just kind of felt refreshed when I went back.
Wow.
really nice share. And Alejandra, while you're either drawing these beautiful sketches or while you're
Yeah, he's another one. He's another
Oh
one.
my.
You
As
You
you
gotta,
are
can see.
really talented. Wow.
Yeah, that's supposed to be a little field or people working on the field. But yes, some little things that I.
you're holding a ball there as well. But my question for you is, can you
It's
find yourself tracking while you're doing that? Like, are you aware that how your own nervous system is benefiting
yeah,
from the visualization or from the drawing?
yeah. When I'm drawing, yeah, I just kind of when I feel like I just start drawing, whatever comes to my mind. And that when I drew this one, when I was just kind of thinking about it and just kind of start drawing, because when I think about it, it doesn't come out the way I want to. So when I kind of feel in it, sometimes I just grab a piece of paper and a pencil, and I just kind of close my eyes and I can just draw lines on the paper, because that can tell you why you feel. Because you can see the difference where you're happy and how the lines are curved, and where you're angry. You can
Wow.
tell when they're just
So
they're
you're
more
really
like
drawing parallels even to the skill three there, the afflictive or beneficial mental states, but you're doing that in a very different process.
yeah.
Really powerful.
Yeah, so that's what I've been doing. I'm like living here. I wake up every morning trying to be grateful for what I do have, and because I've been doing a lot of that TED, the TED talks, and they do the TED educational videos, and I just trying to watch anything that is positive, educational. I stay away from any. I do watch the news once in a while, of course, because I want to stay, but I kind of stay away. And I've been doing a lot of, and one of the studies was, I don't know, about the stoicism, is what it's called, stoicism, and one of the things that got my attention that they focus on, it was the one saying is that instead of changing the world, learn to live the world as it is by pursuing self-improvement. And
Within our control.
yeah, we can control everything. So we can do is just leave the world as it is and try and improve ourselves. This is what I always try to do. As long as I improve myself, and I can be a better person towards the people.
Thanks so much, Alejandra, for sharing your weekly resources. We have an insight now to some of the tools that you're using, which are really great. Would anybody else like to share a quick resource? We've time to get around the group if we share maybe even just one resource that we're using.
So water was my resource, but no, Mary Catherine, please go ahead.
Oh no, that's fine. Juan and I were looking at each other.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what I was asking.
I was going to go first. Yeah. No, please.
Anya, water you mentioned.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Anya. What do you,
You're mute.
Muted. You can animate your resource
Okay.
using your hands.
all right. Actually, there were a couple things. Music was probably the first one that jumped out. Is in talking with my friend Siobhan last week, she was saying that there was some kind of a music thing that was going to happen, and everybody from the National Youth Orchestra could bring their own instrument out and at a certain time play it. So I got out the guitar, and I played the guitar and the piano. So I've kept the guitar out now, and the piano's right here. So I've done a lot more of that, just being the way Alejandra talks about. You get the feeling and you just need to express it with a drawing. That's kind of how I have felt with the guitar and the piano. It's just a different way, because they're both important. So that's one thing for me. And regarding the light, when I do my exercises in the morning, I also, this is one of my resources. You can tell it's bound with a rubber band. I had it. It's by Joan Borisenko. It's called Pocketful of Miracles, and there are practices for every single day. And she shows all kinds from different traditions, and one of them is about the light. And there are several about light. So when I do exercises, I imagine every day that there is this light coming around me and the whole world, and then my own kind of earth and sky coming together. So that kind of goes on at the same time. So it's a little bit like what you were saying, Alejandra, about you imagine not only for you, but for the whole world, that it's engulfing everybody. So those are two things for me.
Brilliant. It's interesting that there's a commonality there as well with that light that you're talking about. And I do a practice quite similar, it's called capacitar, and it comes from Latin America originally, but it uses Qigong, Tai Chi, but it's a light shower that I would give myself every morning. And it's if I remember, but it's nice to hear that other people are doing similar things, different names, but similar functions, I imagine.
Yeah, to pick up. I also used to think that drawing is my resource, really very, very important. And I totally understand when Alejandra, when you say that your drawing reflects your state of mind at that point. But a couple of months ago, I learned that one of my old colleagues passed away, and that I wasn't aware that she passed away. So I learned of it a couple of months later, because now she's back in Korea, of course. So somehow I have this emotional clog at the moment that is not resolved. So I could not go back to draw ever since. So I haven't been drawing a lot at all since then. So that's one resource. I just wanted to reflect on what Alejandra was saying, that that's one resource that I want to regain after this whole process. At some point, when I reconcile with my emotions, I think that will happen. And at the moment, because of this confinement, I've been at home for the past 7 weeks. So doing exercise at home is my resource that gives me a sense of progress and also releases my stress. And that moment I can really calmly think, especially when you do things lying down on the floor, you could really find a time to kind of meditate while you're moving. So that's been very helpful.
Brilliant. And I wish you every success in reconciling those emotions to allow that freedom to draw again. But you're aware of it. It seems very clear that you know what needs to happen. So thanks for sharing, Juan. Anya, the water. I'm dying to hear about the water.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to add to one. Yeah, I hope the same, that you recover from that loss. But I also like that you said progress, movement is helping a lot. I agree, and I realized growth is helping a lot. So if you do grocery shopping, perhaps you buy an artichoke or something, because if they grow, they have such a beautiful flower and color, and to observe it growing, or any other seed, which might be very nice in your apartment, to have change and growth in a different in a different way. And I agree, movement is a lack for the time being, but it's also a help. I'm not sure if I should still share 1 minute. This is going to be a really, really fast swim. So my resources actually, and my mom inspired me, because my grandmother was living in this very small village. Essentially, it was a vacation home, but she moved there eventually. And it's at a lake, and the lake is very, very clear, very, very clear water, quite cold as well. And if you walk in, your feet are on those cobblestones, and it's already a foot massage on your way through to the water. And then you feel the cold water first on your feet, and then your legs, and it's so cold that you actually feel your bodily surroundings, which is actually nice. Talking of drawing, it's like drawing a little line around your body, and you feel it. You feel your limits, and the end of your body, and you feel your skin, and you smell the water. It's very nice, clear lake water, and you can smell it, and you can even taste it, because obviously it's a bit splashing. And I also hear the water when I part the water with my hands. I can hear it, and I love that division of water and the sound of it. And I'm swimming, and I'm approaching the other side of the lake, which is just smooth hills. It's not mountains, but hills with some trees, and a lot of meadows, very nice greenish meadows, and behind there the Alps. So the most beautiful scenery. And yeah, this is my resource for the time being. And I realized the more senses I integrate, the more powerful the journey is into my resilience zone. And again, it's not escapism. It's just to put myself back into the resilience zone. Now you can speak.
No, I was going to say I was there with you. I felt that very powerful resource, and I love to use water as a resource. But the sensation, the feeling, I find myself sometimes having a cold shower and then doing a resource, just to get that emulation of the sense, really the touch, and it's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, Anya. You'll have to tell me more about that resource. I really like it. An image says 1,000 words, they say. So my resource this week, I'll not speak, has been this image that my wife took. I'm not sure if you can see it clearly or not, but my wife took this image, and for me, it just epitomizes the youthfulness and the resilience. It can be a sad photograph, but for me, it's not. It's a beneficial resource. And this is Kira, my daughter, but she's been inside for 9 weeks now, and yet remains extremely resilient and happy and content. And yeah, just looking at it, so it's not so much Kira. Of course, she's a resource for me, but it's the image of seeing her still strong and giving us strength. And so yeah, it's a powerful image, and all you need to do is bring an image to mind. It doesn't even need to be in front of you, but it's that's strength for me. Okay, wow, this has been a really nice sharing, and I can only speak for but I appreciate all of your contributions and sharing, and I've gained a lot this morning, so I hope you have likewise. And we can discuss next week where we go from here, but it's nice to have this. I look forward to a Friday morning check-in with this group, and hopefully we can continue practicing our our skills, and next week we can introduce or move into self-compassion as well. And for those who have already experienced self-compassion through CIT, it's just to build on them. And then for Juan and anybody else that joins that hasn't been part of it, it's a nice additional sharing for the closure of the series 1, which is self-cultivation. Okay,
Thank you so much, both of all of you, everybody.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you
It's been
all.
wonderful. Have a good weekend.
Yeah,
Have a
Bye-bye.
lovely weekend.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Hasta luego.